He's Tom Curran back here on the Rich Eisen Show, host of the Quick Slants podcast and a beat reporter and NFL insider for NBC Sports Boston. How you been, Tommy?
Tremendous. What's going on, Rich?
What do the Patriots, what are they up to, Tom? What was it yesterday all about, best you can tell?
Best I can tell is they need draft collateral. Their entire roster, at least their depth chart, Rich, is kind of falling into needing a renovation. Okay, obviously, you got a team who's gone to 3 Super Bowls in 4 years. Won 2 of them, is doing pretty well. But when you look at the roster and look at the last 2 drafts, they only had 3 players drafted last year make the team. The previous year, they didn't have a first-round pick. Their first pick was Cyrus Jones. It's been a little bit of a disappointment. So they need to renovate. So in grabbing those picks and now having 2 first-rounders, the theory is that they might go up. I don't know if they'll necessarily go up, Rich. They might need to spend all those picks to help renovate the roster. And in terms of Brandin Cooks, he was useful in 2017, a good player, but they sent the 32nd overall pick to New Orleans for him, and they turned it into the 23rd a year later. And he just wasn't a great fit here. Not a horrible player by any stretch. Don't want to besmirch the guy, but it just wasn't a great fit.
Well, when it all comes down to it, I mean, to get a guy in for a year and almost win the Super Bowl with him and trade that pick and improve it the following year, I mean, that's a nice roster maneuver out of Belichick. But the question is staying put for who? I mean, he must have somebody identified to stay put. Tom, what do you think that he's looking at? Thinks that he can get at 23 and 31 or move around and move up? What is the plan at least going in? If they do stay put here?
When they talk about looking at what they're going to get, they just stack. So Belichick has been, and Nick Caserio as well, you can't predict what the 22 teams ahead of you are going to do when you're at 23, so you need a handful of players that you would target if it dropped to that level. So it could be positional, or it could be the best player out there, but could be tight end, could be a quarterback, but you're going to go through those first 5 or 6 guys who are at the top pretty quickly, and they'll all be gone by 15. If he wants to move up for a backup quarterback, I don't know if that makes a hell of a lot of sense. Not a backup, but a guy who's a projected starter down the road. I don't think it makes sense to do when you have other needs on the team that are immediate. Sit there, wait for somebody else, as you did with Garoppolo, take Kyle Lauletta. But defensively, they need speed, in my estimation, Rich.
So let's go off the rails a little bit then. What's more possible, that these 2 first-rounders are used to get Odell Beckham, or these 2 first-rounders and others are used as capital go up and get somebody to replace Brady one day?
More likely, but still not likely at all, would be to use the 2 to get up and get a quarterback. I think Belichick, over the course of time, he once told me in 2001, they had drafted Seymour. And I said to him, why did you do that? Because at that time, the thought was David Terrell was there and Bledsoe could throw downfield to him, and Brady hadn't emerged, even at that point when the draft had come. And Belichick says to me, he goes, who's the best rookie wide receiver this year? I'm like, he goes, it's Chris Chambers. He was a second-round pick from wherever the hell, Wisconsin or something, who was with the Dolphins. Because you don't need to go up into the top 10 to take a wide receiver. So he certainly wouldn't spend 2 firsts, in my estimation, to go and get Odell Beckham, who's looking for more money. He'd sit tight and get the quarterback if he chose that was the route.
Mm-hmm. Tom Curran of NBC Sports Boston here. Okay, so since we last spoke after the Super Bowl, the Patriots have watched Danny Amendola leave, with Gronkowski giving him a social media send-off of saying, be happy, be free. Mm-hmm. He's talking about not maybe coming back. Solder is now a Giant, and now Cooks is a Ram. How is Brady? What is he thinking right now, Tom?
And Dion Lewis is elsewhere as well.
Correct. He's a Titan.
Yeah, you got a huge outflow of offensive talent. What's Brady thinking? I think, honestly, from my contacts and sources, he's thinking about just getting his brain in order with his family and trying to recalibrate and figure out exactly what he wants to do going forward. I don't think that he's going to get caught up with the ins and outs and the roster machinations. He never really has. He hasn't had that GM level of input here with the Patriots over the course of time, which is, interesting when you think of the other players who have around the NFL as quarterbacks. So I don't think he's losing his mind about it. I do imagine, though, when you talk about Nate Solder, the Patriots have a tendency to put a lot on Brady, as you know, over the years. And the buck ends up stopping with him, even if the roster decisions are made elsewhere. So this guy takes less money than virtually every decent quarterback in the league, and he's better than them. And more falls on his plate to try and clean up the talent or lack of talent or developing talent issues that the team has elsewhere. So I think that's where some of this notion of underappreciation, as his wife alluded to at the end of Tom versus Time, might enter into it, as well as, just the ability to think of his own brand and future going forward as a 40-year-old.
So, look, here's the narrative, right?
Am I all over the place here?
No, but the Patriots are, Tom. I mean, let's be honest here. I mean, the whole situation, it's difficult to get a wrap on. That it could just be, it just could be Belichick is stockpiling talent because he knows that he's going to be there for quite some time before he may or may not hand the reins off to McDaniels, who jilted the Colts because he may or may not have been told that he's the next guy. And then Brady's sitting there, he may or may not be thinking of stepping away, and Gronk may or may not be thinking about stepping away. And what is the current state of Gronkowski right now, Tom? Best you can tell.
The best I can tell is he'll play in 2018. And the fact that the Patriots traded away Brandin Cooks, as Adam Schefter, and I trust Adam's reporting, implicitly, he's generally right on with the Patriots. And he says that now this means that Gronkowski's not going to be traded. Well, is Gronkowski going to play? Eventually, I think he's going to, put his shirt back on, turn his hat around forward, and come back and play football. Do I think that all of this stuff, his off-season feeling his oats and stringing things out and subtweeting the team, have gone over big? No, they absolutely haven't. But I don't think that there's a lot of recourse to the team. I also will be very intrigued to see whether or not he gets the same kind of incentive-laden contract that he did last year. Because if you're Belichick and you have kids jumping up and down upstairs, making a whole crap load of noise, and all the other kids sitting at the dinner table behaving themselves, do you go upstairs and reward the kid who's making all the noise upstairs just to convince him to come down to the table and eat dinner? I mean, that sends a bad message for the quote-unquote culture, I think. So there's a lot going on. Like you said, man, you're exactly right. That's why it's hard to stay on one path with this team and just converse in one small silo.
So then in terms of the known unknowns, if you will, last one for you here, Tom, is there's no doubt with the quarterback group as deep as it is, and the Patriots have so much flexibility to move wherever the hell they want on a draft board right now, that Belichick and the rest of the group have to be identifying somebody, saying if this guy's available at the right spot, we're going to take him. Who's that quarterback?
I'd say it's the kid from Richmond, Kyle Laletta, and only because he checks all those weird intangible boxes.
I love that.
I know. Multi-year captain at Richmond, played under multiple offensive coordinators. Father was a quarterback at Navy, so was his great uncle or something at Navy. So all of these things contribute to that. Plus, he's a little bit below the radar, the leadership stuff. But that ends up being one of those situations where all the breadcrumbs are there, so we go to Kyle Laletta, and then they in turn go, we just signed Johnny Manziel. Ha-ha, surprise.
Do you think that's possible?
I don't think it's impossible. I really don't.
By the way, that this basically this entire conversation was brought to you by, is it possible? I don't think it's impossible.
Right. No kidding. I know it's murder. And I'll tell you this. I'm trying to remember. Remember a couple of years ago they had that Patriots draft scouting report on Johnny Manziel that somehow got leaked?
Mm-hmm.
Just revisit that. Just take another look at it, Rich, and look at it, because it does not pan him by any stretch of the imagination. It does not pan his...
Okay.
Oh, my God. All right. I got to go back into a thing.
Go back, though, Tom.
I'm in a meeting. I'm like this Patriots Hall of Fame meeting. I'm in the hallway outside of it, and the door was open. I'm like, rah, 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 rah. They just closed the door.
Well, there you go, Tom. You're not allowed to go in now. You're out. You're out of the Hall of Fame. You're finished.
All right, buddy.
Take care, pal.
I'll see you.
You got it. It's Tom Curran.
The Rich Eisen Show, weekdays at noon Eastern on Audience.